I'm excited to record another show with a great entrepreneur all the way out in Indiana today. His message is strong. He's got a brand new book that just came out, and there's a lot in between. So let me bring him on. Matt Lesser, welcome to That Entrepreneur Show.
Hey, thanks, Vincent. I have been looking forward to this.
I'm excited to have you on. You're a very ambitious person. As I mentioned, a couple new books. He's got some new business happenings, all here on That Entrepreneur Show, the top podcast for those looking to level up their success. I sit down with founders of companies and brands each week since 2019. We're almost at our 4-year anniversary, and today is a perfect example of great guests continuing to come through my inbox. If you want to learn more about the show, be sure to head to That Entrepreneur Show on all social or vincentalanci.com. You can work with me as a podcast or book coach, or if you're in the Tampa area, let me know. I can help you find a home. But here, we are worried about Matthew's journey. He has a lot to share. Let's start from the beginning, Matt. Why'd you become an entrepreneur?
It's kind of in my blood. I grew up in a home of an entrepreneur. My dad was a serial entrepreneur, and before him, my maternal grandfather started several companies, and so I really didn't know anything but entrepreneurship. And so when I went to college, I studied business. Got out of college, really had no intentions of coming into the family business. It was a wholesale oil distribution company, and but yet needed a job. And so, but my dad and I, just didn't work well together. And so that lasted about a year, and then I went in to resign, and he flipped it on me, and he actually left, and just kind of turned the business over to me. And so I took over, and it was one of those things. I was a 24, I think I was almost 25 years old, freshly minted, graduate from college, thinking that I could do about anything in the world, right?
Yep.
And
That
I
works.
couldn't. And I quickly found out why he got out of Dodge so quickly. The business was a mess, and I just ran into one problem after another, and it literally sank the business within months of me taking over. I got really sick and spiraled into a deep and clinical suicidal depression. And then coming out of that, then just miracle after miracle happened. We started a new business out of that, actually, and that one flourished. And so I did that for 12 years, built it, had a blast building it, learned a lot about leadership. That's really where my passion and my heart for leadership was birthed out of. Had the chance, then I came to a crossroads where I had to decide. Either I was going to try to go to the next level, leverage everything, literally everything, and go to the next level, or sell to one of my competitors who was actually a dear friend. And so sold it, and went into private equity then. And so kind of continue to get an itch, my entrepreneurial itch, by buying businesses with somebody else's money, which is fun. I traveled the world and met some amazing people, bought some businesses, sold some businesses. But more importantly, I got to work with leaders and leadership teams, excuse me, on almost every continent. And so after doing that for a while, I then the latter part of my journey in private equity, then I stopped the investment side because I wanted to focus strictly on the leadership development side.
Love that.
And it got to the point that I have friends and family kept saying, "Hey, man, you need to go do this on your own. You've got a gift for it. You're passionate about it. Just go do it." And I had this thing in the back of my mind where I've been, for about a decade, been toying with this idea of writing a book, and been fighting it, quite frankly, because I didn't want to write a book. I knew how dang hard it was, and even more difficult to get it published, but I couldn't get away from it. So I left private equity in 2018,
Okay.
and
Few
spent a
years
couple
now.
of years. What's that?
Few years now, yeah.
Yep, 5 years ago. And spent a couple of years trying to, I guess, find my sea legs. I wasn't yet ready to jump in, I guess, into the waters of my own thing yet. And so jumped into the waters of banking, did that for a year. That was awful decision.
In
And
there.
then I
Been in
spent a
banking.
year. What's that?
I've been in banking too. I understand.
Oof. Yeah, it just wasn't for me. And the thing is, I knew it a week into it. And that's the hard part is, and it was a friend of mine. And so it's like, dude, I didn't know how to tell him, like, dude, I hate this. So I stuck it out for about a year. after that, I did start my business, and but then COVID hit, difficult to get in front of people. So actually, a good friend of mine, I was on his board. He was an entrepreneur himself, and I actually went and he was kind of like my sole client for 1 year, and helped him build an executive team and a leadership team. And then toward the latter part of that year, I started writing, and I spent a year, a little over a year, and about a year and a half actually writing Unsatisfied, which is the red book behind me. So that came out in October of last year. And it was a book, quite frankly, Vincent, that I couldn't understand why it got written, because it wasn't the book I wanted to write.
Okay.
And so toward the end of the time writing that one, actually it was in the publishing process at that point, I
Okay.
started writing the next book, which comes out, because there's a green one behind me that's called Unengaged. And that releases the end of this month. So sorry, a long answer to your question, but focus on writing, client acquisition, those kinds of things now, and speaking. So I just got back from a conference last week I was speaking at. So anyway, kind of all over the map there. There you go. Kind of my journey in a nutshell.
There's no wrong or long answer when it comes to this show. Those who come on the show and speak with passion like yourself are going to give the most to our audience. Did you always want to write a book? Was that something that you always wanted to do, or that's something that came out of all your accomplishments?
So where it came out of was all the years in working with leaders. Primarily, my own journey is in the first book, in leadership. Just because I've often joked, but it's not really a joke, of saying, I went to college to get my degree, and I went into business to get my education. But the reality is this: is that even in I paid for a college degree and then later an MBA, they don't really teach you leadership. And so, I mean, nowhere, I never took a class that said, hey, this is how you need to lead when your business is failing. And they never really teach you, okay, this is how you lead. These are the different kinds of leadership that you need to be aware of when your business starts out with 3 people and then scales to 200 people. And I'm in my 20s at that time, primarily 20s and early 30s, during this scaling up process. How do I lead people that I'm hiring that are 10, 15, 20 years older than me, with a whole lot more experience than I have? Sure, I may have some book knowledge, but I lack that experiential in the trenches knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And so, empowerment, those kinds of things, I was never taught that. And so what did I have to do? I had to basically, I sought out leaders, I sought out mentors, and said, can I buy an hour of your time? Can tell me, what books do I need to read? And you see the books behind me. This is just one shelf. I'm in my study right now. This is one shelf of 12 shelves. And I've read every one of these books. And these are people that I recommend. These are people that I adore. And they told me, these are the books you need to read on leadership. So then, as I started traveling the world working with leaders, I started hearing this story, Vincent, over and over and over and over again, from business owners, primarily. And at this point, they were in their 50s and 60s. They wanted to sell their businesses. And the story was this: I've sacrificed everything. When they say everything, what they meant was, I sacrificed usually my marriages and my kids in order to build this business that I thought would give me lasting satisfaction, freedom, flexibility, money, power, whatever it is that they were seeking after. Usually it was some sort of monetary freedom and flexibility and time. By the time they finally got to the place where they had those things, their relational health was a wreck. Many times, if they were still married, they would describe it in terms of they lived separate lives. If they still had a relationship with their kids, many of them did not. It was sad story. I mean, many times these stories I was here, they were in tears, man. They were just broken individuals. Most of them were male. There were a handful of female, but most of them were male. And the thing is, it wasn't just in the US. It wasn't just domestic. This was in Europe. This was even in Africa. And so anyway, I just began keeping a journal. And finally, it's like, you know what? Somebody's got to tell this story. And so that's how the first book was birthed.
I think that's incredible, and really capturing your authentic experiences. And I think, and I'm sure you can relate, podcasting, we're sharing our stories, sharing our experiences. but to a new audience. And I think podcast guesting is the best thing. I don't do enough of it. I've been very fortunate to maybe do, I don't know, 15, 20 guest appearances, but you're getting your message out in front of a whole new audience. Your network's aware of what you do and how you move and all of the things you're accomplishing. But now you're hopefully getting into that new audience where it only takes one. That's my motto. It takes one person to hear your message, one person to connect with you that can really change the course of everything going on. Is there a third book coming out? I feel silly even asking that because I feel like the answer is yes.
So the second book comes out the 24th of this month. So I'm in the final stages of getting that puppy out. The answer is yes. Actually, I have ideas that I'm beginning to put together with my editor for a third and a fourth book. Partly because I have the ideas. The other part, this may sound silly, but if you see the two books behind me, if you put them together, it forms the top of an arrow. And so I want to finish the arrow picture. And so the bottom two,
that's pretty sweet.
isn't that sweet? So then the bottom two are going to form the stem of the arrow.
That's awesome. I've never heard of that. I've never seen that. I'm going to give you the originality points there. That is really, really cool. Everyone out there. Before we talk a little more about your business and everything we should know all about that, where can we find you online? Where can we find these books online? We'll revisit this at the end, but while we're on the topic.
Yep. So my website, www.uniquely, that's UNIQUELY, normal, NORMAL, uniquelynormal.com. My first book, Unsatisfied, is Unsatisfied When Less Is More. Put all of that in because there unfortunately are some books of ill repute titled Unsatisfied that I was not aware of when I chose the title. So Unsatisfied When Less Is More on Amazon. The new one coming out, Unengaged, you can pre-order it now at Ballast Books. That's BALLAST books.com. And then when it comes out, it will also be on Ballast Books and also on Amazon. So those are the ways. And on my website, you can see my email and get in touch with me that way.
All right, everyone, be sure to head to this man's website. He has so much to offer. But before we wind down here, I do want to backtrack a little bit to your current venture, your current company. What's the gist of it? What do we need to know about it?
Yeah, great. It's at its heart, it's all about leadership development. I am passionate about equipping leaders with practical tools and resources that they need to lead well. I believe that the essence of life is people and relationships, and leaders are called to lead people. And so because I knew the struggle that I had trying to find the resources I need to lead and lead well, I want to try to bridge that gap for leaders today and provide what they need, come alongside them, whether it is coaching or it is training or it is equipping with tools and methodologies, whatever it takes to help them lead and lead well. I am passionate about seeing leaders not just start strong, but finish even stronger.
Love that.
And so that is what my company is all about. And the second book coming out, Vincent, is really, it's about integrating three foundational pillars of leadership in corporations, I should say in companies, businesses, to help them build flourishing organizations. And that's what I do. That's why I get up every day.
I love how you said that. I've been typing up these notes as we're going along. Integrating pillars of leadership. Leadership is not just leadership. There are different areas. And I also have here in the notes for some areas we chatted about today, leadership styles when you're failing and when you're scaling, the differences. So I really appreciate you highlighting those on there. Something else I'd like to ask, if you could sit down with any entrepreneur here, Matt, throughout history, dead or alive, who's your choice going to be? This is something I've tried to ask almost every guest that's come on the show in almost 4 years. Very few, only of late haven't, because I've gotten rid of the spotlight stories to make them shorter episodes. But I'd love to ask, I see you're a reader. You're very big into learning. So I'm intrigued by your response here.
Any entrepreneur, dead or alive? Well, alive, I would love to sit down with Patrick Lencioni one-on-one and just pick his brain about leadership. I mean, he's a leadership guru and he's also an entrepreneur. Obviously, he started his own business and he's written tons of books. No longer living. It may sound cliche, but I'd love to talk to Steve Jobs.
Hard to argue it.
What's that?
Hard to argue that.
Yeah, I'd love to just pick his brain, man. That guy, he had a monster brain.
I love it. Well, let's delve a bit deeper here. If you could pick the place to meet Steve Jobs, where would the meeting go down?
Um, one of two places, either his office, just to say that I was in his office, or in his home. Either one of those places, I would love to. Wherever you know what I, wherever he would say he had the most creative genius birthed. So whatever that room was or that place was in his life, that's where I'd want to meet him.
I love it. I love when guests choose places of their comfort because I'm in agreement where that's probably where they're going to feel most inclined to share some of those $1 million secrets. But Matt, I had a great time getting to know you. Thank you for connecting with me. One more time, where can we find you online?
My website's the best place, www.uniquelynormal.com. And then my email is matt, M-A-T-T, at uniquelynormal.com. I'd love to connect with anyone who would love to connect.
I love that. Be sure to go online, check him out. And the show is at That Entrepreneur Show on all social media. And I am at Vincent A. Lanci on all socials, including YouTube, where I have the That Entrepreneur Show podcast channel listed there. So head there for some video peeks from this show. And today we are signing off from Tampa all the way to Indiana. Thank you so much for taking the time to join our community.
Thank you.